Okay.
Have you ever thought about phones in school? Imagine you're in class in an emergency situation and you don't have your phone and you have no way to contact your family. When communication matters the most and you can't access it, that's when issues start to arise. So hi, my name is Maddie. The topic that we're going to be discussing today is should cell phones be banned in schools? Cell phones serve many purposes in today's world. They are what connect and bring everybody together. Today we'll speak about the pros and cons of cell phones in a school setting.
So who need detention for doing something like passing notes when they have smartphones? My name is Crystal. I am a mother of a junior high schooler, and I'm also a elementary school nurse. And my position in this matter is that I feel like New Jersey schools should ban cell phones for many reasons, and today we'll discuss those reasons.
All right, so a little bit about my background. I'm a senior in high school. Obviously, I've been in school for many years. Um, I use my phone sometimes in school, and I find it beneficial for a few reasons, just in terms of being in contact with my family and friends throughout the day. So I have a strong position on this as well. So, first things first, one of my main points that I find very important is safety and emergency like contacts. So if a school is having an emergency situation, I think it is important for students to be allowed to contact their families during emergencies. And if they don't have their cell phones, I think it can be hard to do that and may cause some emotional distress for those who have really close relationships with their family. What's your position?
Now, I think that is very important to consider the age difference between me and Maddie. Maddie, again, is probably like a decade younger than myself. And when I attended school, we didn't have cell phones. So, of course, there was emergencies like September 11th. That was an emergency situation. We didn't have cell phones. However, as a child, I speak from a point of elementary school kids, junior high school kids, and maybe even high school kids when you in in elementary school, you're probably between the ages, or even junior high school, between the ages of like, let's say 5 and 14, to throw a number out there. 9 times out of 10, you're always going to be with an adult. So, in a case that something happens, there's always going to be adults around, and adults know how to manage emergency situations. And our children need to learn how to trust adults. And even for the parents, we have to learn to trust the adults. Mental health is real, like it's a big deal today. And students using cell phones, is a contributor to, anxiety and depression in children today. And studies from John Hopkins University have shown that.
All right. I think you made some very nice points there. One of my other main concerns is the educational benefits. I think that being able to use phones in school do bring some benefits, like being great research tools. They have cameras so they can record presentations that the students may make. They have calculators for students who need calculators for certain assignments, as well as organizational aids and tools. What do you think?
Well, I can agree with you that cell phones can be beneficial, and the point that you made is it supports that they can be beneficial. However, younger students are easily distracted, and cell phones could be a distraction. Younger kids do not have the mental capacity to be able to have self-control and set limits and boundaries for themselves. So if a younger child, and I don't just mean younger children, just think of that same age group that I mentioned before, like age 5 to 13. They're growing mentally, emotionally, and physically, and they lack that um they just lack, how you say, I can't think of the word.
They lack maturity.
Boundaries. They don't know how to set boundaries and limits for themselves.
Mhm.
So if we put something in front of their face and tell them not to use it, they're not necessarily gonna, listen. But if we take it away and say, hey, you can't have it here because this is a place for education, then they're more inclined to not have it. And, we could focus on the education.
Mhm. I agree with those points. I think there is like a huge varying factor based off their age. Like if they're older, they're more mature and they understand how to use it and when it's an appropriate time versus when it's not. And that also brings me to another one of my points, building digital responsibility. I think students who learn how to manage their time online and develop clear boundaries and when they should be using their phone versus when they shouldn't. Um, like personally for me, I got a phone at a very young age, and now I feel as though I have very good self-control about when I should be using my phone versus when I haven't, when I shouldn't be using it. Just because I started learning from a very young age, like the appropriate times and when it's completely inappropriate to use it. And I think the kids who only get like cell phones for certain amounts for certain times during the day, I think they don't completely understand. Like if they only are sent to it, only are like having their phones during school, I think they don't necessarily like understand. Like they don't have it during like at home time or something like that.
That's a good point too. But when you think about younger children and the things that they have access to while using these devices, that's something that we need to take into consideration. Um, Although phones can be beneficial and used for the purpose of researching and things like that, but who's monitoring these devices during school hours when, kids should be learning? They have computer classes. They can do research on computers. They have laptops and MacBooks or Chromebooks. They can do that same research on those devices. But even for cell phones and these devices, there's a lot of research out there that recommend screen time, setting a set time for these children um, because of the medical defects that it can have, like looking at the screens, eye strains, headaches. There's so many things out there. And, if we just leave school to books and paper and, not so much screen time, even like coming up, I'm sure your mom told you not to stand in front of the TV before, because, you're going to need glasses. But now, how do we take away the screen when it's right in the palm of these children's hands?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think personally my parents had a huge input on my like screen time and what I was allowed to see and what I wasn't allowed to see. So I think like teachers and parents like having input on and just really knowing what exactly their kids are seeing is a huge like important factor. But another reason that I thought could be beneficial to have phones in school is a lot of kids take the bus to school, and that may be a school setting that kids may not necessarily have like computers and stuff. And if anything were to happen, like an emergency or something, I think that would be another very good situation to have a phone in.
That would be a good situation to have a phone in. But kids been taking the bus to school for years. And again, I took the bus to school, so I didn't have a cell phone in elementary school. And we just had faith, and trust. And, everything wasn't stricken by, you know, it's like everything is just like scary. The world is not that scary. Like, oh, I gotta have my cell phone in case something happened. Oh, I gotta, have this in case something happened. It's not, this is all like non-conducive to our mental health. So
Mhm.
again, I say, um, students shouldn't be able to have cell phones in school. There's so many other things, like leave it to the schools to protect our children. And in the state of New Jersey, they actually have a grant program for schools that is willing to adopt the bell to bell policy, which means students are not to have cell phones between school hours, in between school hours, from the morning bell to the last bell. It do shed light on allowing children to have non-internet devices. Like Apple Watches. And my daughter, who is 12 years old, she has an Apple Watch and she's able to contact me. But to have all of this access to like social media and just everything, TikToks and videos and researching things, just having all of that at the palm of your hand 24 hours a day or however long, like even for like kids with addiction, they facing like lack of sleep, which is not conducive to their, education. Like they can't pay attention in school. So having the cell phones, just to say, let's limit the amount of time that these children have cell phones. They can do whatever they want at home. But while in an educational setting, I recommend that the cell phones are not allowed.
Yeah, I think you make some really good points there. Um, One other thought that I had was, like you said, the Apple Watch. I think some schools, even if you subtract the cell phones, I think some schools also are having issues with watches. And I think if you can just keep the one variable of maybe if you take away the phones, like being allowed to have watches, like so, like you said, you can communicate, and that's the way that you can't really look at a lot of social media on your watch. So I think that would be a good like middle ground to stand on, especially if like phones do end up getting banned. I think that would be a great like solution.
Yeah. Non-internet enable, well, they say internet enable devices only, like, which is that can definitely be helpful. And let the computers do the research for the children and let them be able to, run around freely and not, be stuck doom scrolling because, these kids really lack boundaries and things like that. Like they're still growing and developing, and we just want to make sure that they're growing and developing in a healthy way. And school could be
Yeah.
a great environment for them to grow and develop and explore without the cell phones.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of your points. To wrap this up, I just think that cell phones, they can be used for many good things and many bad things. And I do think that there can be substitutions made and new plans in place that could really help all the issues that we face today with cell phones being in school or not being in school. I think kids should be responsible with no matter whatever device that they're using. Um,
And
yeah.
thank you again, Madeline. It's just been a pleasure to, have this time with you and hear your point of view on how and why cell phones may or may not be banned in schools. Thank you,
Yeah,
Madeline.
of course. Thank you.